The vast expanse of the Warhammer 40,000 universe is built on the foundation of a single figure whose influence transcends the ages, the Emperor of Mankind. A beacon of hope, a figure of unmatched power, and an enigmatic leader, the Emperor's vision for humanity was ambitious, yet it was shrouded in secrecy. Despite being the most potent psychic entity ever to exist, commanding legions of genetically engineered warriors and inspiring countless billions, his methods and motives remain elusive. His secrets, born out of necessity, ambition, and a desire to protect humanity, have paradoxically created the conditions for eternal war, a grim cycle from which the Imperium cannot escape. To understand the impact of the Emperor's secrets, one must grasp the dichotomy of his legacy. He was not only a savior, but also a manipulator, hiding truths from even his closest allies. These secrets, whether concerning the origins of his primarchs, the chaotic forces of the warp, or the true nature of the Imperium itself, were meant to shield humanity from threats too great for them to comprehend. Yet, these same hidden truths would prove to be the seeds of betrayal, conflict, and suffering. Did his intentions, however noble, doom humanity to an existence where war is the only constant? The Great Crusade, the Emperor's magnum opus, symbolized the peak of human ambition. A campaign to unite scattered human civilizations across the galaxy, it was propelled by the Emperor's unmatched foresight and the might of his armies. However, it was also a campaign fueled by silence. Critical truths were obscured from his primarchs and legions. They marched across the stars, guided by faith in a vision they only partially understood. The Emperor's decision to withhold vital information, particularly about the nature of chaos, the warp, and his long-term plans, would prove to be catastrophic. As humanity's enemies multiplied, the Emperor's hidden agenda unraveled. The Horus heresy, the cataclysmic civil war that fractured the Imperium, was not merely the result of a Primarch's ambition or the corruption of chaos. It was the consequence of a leadership style rooted in secrecy. The Emperor's failure to trust his sons, the Primarchs, with the full scope of his knowledge created a vacuum, one that chaos was all too eager to exploit. Beyond the heresy, the Emperor's secrets have left lasting scars on the Imperium. The Imperium of the 41st millennium is a crumbling edifice of despair, its populace locked in perpetual conflict. The truths the Emperor concealed about the nature of the warp, the origins of his technological miracles, and the true cost of his plans continue to shape its destiny. As the Imperium battles on, the question lingers: was this inevitable? Did the Emperor's silence lay the groundwork for humanity's endless war? This video delves into the mysteries surrounding the Emperor's decisions and their far-reaching consequences. By unraveling the layers of his secrecy, we aim to explore whether the Imperium's eternal war was an avoidable tragedy or a grim necessity. From the enigmatic nature of the Emperor himself to the fateful events of the Horus heresy and beyond, we will uncover the threads of a narrative that defines the galaxy-spanning conflicts of Warhammer 40,000. The journey begins here, in the shadow of the Emperor's secrets, as we seek to understand how they shaped the fate of humanity and whether they truly doomed it to eternal war. At the heart of the galaxy-spanning narrative surrounding the Emperor's secrets lies a diverse and pivotal array of participants and factions. Each plays a critical role in shaping the Imperium's fate, whether as its stalwart defenders, tragic betrayers, or implacable enemies. Their interactions, decisions, and conflicts form the foundation of humanity's grim destiny. Understanding these key players provides insight into how the Emperor's withheld truths have perpetuated the Imperium's ceaseless state of war. Central to this story is the Emperor himself, whose unparalleled abilities and enigmatic nature made him both a guiding light and a divisive figure. His leadership was absolute, his power unmatched, but his methods often alienated those closest to him. By guarding his knowledge and wielding it selectively, he created an environment of trust tempered by suspicion. His chosen generals and followers were left to navigate the galaxy based on incomplete truths, their loyalties stretched to the breaking point under the weight of decisions they could not fully comprehend. The Space Marines, humanity's greatest warriors, embody the duality of this dynamic. As genetically enhanced super soldiers, they were forged to be the vanguard of the Emperor's vision. Yet their creation was steeped in secrecy, their origins tied to hidden processes and ancient technologies that even they did not fully understand. These warriors fought with unyielding faith in their cause, but the lack of transparency about their purpose and the galaxy's true dangers left them vulnerable to manipulation and corruption. The Mechanicum, based on Mars, represents another critical faction influenced by the Emperor's secrecy. This technologically adept group became the Imperium's backbone for producing advanced machinery and weapons, yet their knowledge of the ancient technologies they revered was often incomplete or distorted. The Emperor's decision to withhold full access to humanity's forgotten lore created a strained partnership. While they contributed to the Great Crusade's success, their unflinching adherence to their own dogma often clashed with the Imperium's needs, sowing discord that would erupt in violence during the cataclysmic events that followed. Among humanity's adversaries, the forces of chaos stand as the most insidious and relentless. Their power stems from the warp, the dimension of psychic energy, and thought that the Emperor sought to master. The beings within this chaotic realm capitalized on the secrets the Emperor kept from his followers, exploiting their ignorance to lure them into betrayal and madness. By refusing to openly acknowledge the threat posed by these entities, the Emperor inadvertently handed chaos the tools to sow devastation. The ordinary citizens of the Imperium, the countless billions of unaugmented humans scattered across its worlds, are another crucial element in this narrative. They serve as soldiers, workers, and worshippers within a system that demands their unwavering loyalty. Yet they remain largely ignorant of the larger forces shaping their fate, kept in the dark by the very government meant to protect them. The Emperor's secrecy extended to these individuals, whose lives are shaped by propaganda and a sanitized understanding of the galaxy's threats. This widespread lack of knowledge ensures the continued cycle of blind obedience and sacrifice, perpetuating the Imperium's grim reality. The Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's personal guardians, hold a unique position in this story. Charged with defending the Emperor and enforcing his will, they operate as an elite and enigmatic force. Their proximity to the Emperor means they are privy to truths hidden from others, yet even they are not fully aware of all his secrets. This selective sharing of information fosters an atmosphere of isolation as the Custodes act with a singular focus that often alienates them from other factions within the Imperium. Lastly, the enemies of the Imperium, ranging from Xenos empires to heretical factions, are significant actors in this eternal struggle. These adversaries, while external, have often exploited the gaps in knowledge and unity created by the Emperor's secrecy. Whether through technological superiority, cunning diplomacy, or sheer brutality, they challenge the Imperium at every turn, forcing humanity into a defensive posture that reinforces its reliance on war. Each of these factions plays a distinct role in the unending conflicts that define the Imperium. The decisions, alliances, and betrayals that stem from their interactions with the Emperor's concealed truths highlight the complexity of his legacy. As the galaxy burns in the fires of war, these players are bound together in a shared tragedy, navigating a reality shaped by secrets that may never be fully uncovered. The roots of the Imperium's endless war lie in the turbulent history of humanity's rise, its fall during the Age of Strife, and the Emperor's intervention at a pivotal moment. Before the Imperium was forged, humanity reached incredible technological heights during the Dark Age of technology. This era saw the creation of advanced artificial intelligence, the colonization of countless worlds, and a utopian vision of interstellar unity. However, over-reliance on autonomous systems and unchecked exploration of the warp sowed the seeds of catastrophe. The unraveling began when humanity's greatest allies turned against them. Machines designed to serve rebelled, leading to devastating wars that shattered countless civilizations. This was compounded by the discovery of the warp, a dimension of raw psychic energy. While initially harnessed for faster-than-light travel and communication, humanity's understanding of this chaotic realm was limited. As more psychers emerged among the population, uncontrolled interactions with the warp invited calamities, such as demonic incursions and widespread destruction. These factors plunged humanity into a dark age, isolating worlds and reducing once-thriving colonies to ruins. The Age of Strife, a period defined by anarchy and despair, further fractured humanity. With the warp becoming increasingly turbulent, interstellar travel became unreliable or impossible. Communication between systems broke down, leaving countless planets to fend for themselves. Many regressed to pre-industrial levels, while others devolved into barbarism or fell under the sway of tyrants. Without a unifying authority, humanity's scattered remnants were vulnerable to Xenos predators, internal conflict, and the insidious influence of the warp. Amid this chaos, the Emperor emerged as a figure of unparalleled power and ambition. While the full extent of his origins remains obscured, it is known that he had long prepared for this moment, consolidating his knowledge and resources over millennia. He sought to reunite humanity under a single banner, leveraging his extraordinary abilities and unparalleled technological mastery. Yet even in this endeavor, he chose to keep much of his knowledge hidden. Whether it was the true nature of the warp, the cost of psychic power, or the dark truths behind the tools he employed, the Emperor's decisions reflected his belief that some truths were too dangerous for others to know. The Emperor's Great Crusade was not merely an act of reunification, but also an urgent response to the growing threat of chaos. He understood that the warp, with its sentient, malevolent entities, posed an existential danger to humanity. To combat this, he sought to create a secular, rationalist society that would reject superstition and eschew reliance on the warp's volatile energies. However, the Emperor underestimated the cultural and spiritual needs of the countless worlds he sought to bring under his rule. By suppressing religious beliefs and dismantling traditional structures, he alienated many, creating resentment that would later be exploited by his enemies. Another critical factor leading to eternal conflict was the Emperor's approach to leadership. He ruled with absolute authority, but maintained an aura of detachment, often leaving those under his command with incomplete guidance. This fostered a sense of isolation among his closest followers, who were forced to navigate complex decisions without fully understanding his goals. This lack of clarity bred mistrust and ultimately rebellion. The galaxy's Xenos species also played a significant role in shaping the Imperium's war-torn reality. During humanity's decline, alien empires expanded into territories once dominated by mankind. When the Emperor began his campaign of reunification, he encountered resistance from these entrenched civilizations. Whether out of fear, pragmatism, or ideology, the Emperor adopted a policy of extermination toward most non-human species, framing them as threats to humanity's survival. This unrelenting stance ensured that the Imperium would always be at odds with the galaxy's diverse inhabitants. Yet even as the Emperor worked to create a unified Imperium, the seeds of its eternal war were being sown. His reliance on secrecy, his dismissal of ideological and cultural differences among the worlds he sought to control, and his adversarial stance toward Xenos left little room for peace. The galaxy was already a fractured and hostile place, and the Emperor's methods, while effective in the short term, ensured that these fractures would persist, becoming the foundation of the Imperium's unending struggle. Ultimately, the situation that led to the Imperium's eternal war was not born from a single event, but from a combination of historical tragedies, the Emperor's calculated decisions, and the chaotic, hostile nature of the galaxy itself. These forces coalesced into a reality where war was not just a necessity, but an inevitability. As the Imperium expanded, so too did the conflicts that defined it, setting the stage for a grim future where peace remains an unattainable dream. The unfolding of events that led to the Imperium's eternal war is a saga of ambition, betrayal, and relentless conflict. These developments trace back to the Emperor's decision to launch the Great Crusade, a monumental campaign to reunify humanity's scattered domains. Each stage of this endeavor introduced new complexities, challenges, and unintended consequences that set the Imperium on its path of endless warfare. The Great Crusade began with a burst of hope and triumph. Using ancient and advanced technologies, the Emperor mobilized vast armies and fleets to traverse the galaxy, liberating or conquering human worlds lost to the age of strife. This effort brought together a fractured humanity under the Emperor's banner, offering the promise of unity, prosperity, and security. However, the realities of conquest introduced deep fractures within this dream. Some worlds welcomed the Emperor's forces as saviors, while others resisted, seeing his arrival as a threat to their sovereignty and traditions. Each victory was accompanied by the destruction of cultures and identities, fostering resentment among conquered populations. As the Crusade advanced, the Emperor encountered numerous alien civilizations. While some were benign or even cooperative, most were deemed threats to humanity's survival. The Emperor's policy of extermination left no room for coexistence, resulting in wars of annihilation against countless species. While these campaigns solidified human dominance, they also sowed the seeds of perpetual enmity between the Imperium and the galaxy's Xenos races. Survivors of these purges often regrouped and retaliated, ensuring that no peace could endure. Within the Imperium itself, the strains of rapid expansion began to show. As more worlds were brought under Imperial control, maintaining cohesion across such vast distances became an insurmountable challenge. The lack of a universal understanding of the Emperor's vision created significant disparities in governance and loyalty. Some planetary governors saw themselves as loyal servants of a greater cause, while others exploited their positions for personal power. These inconsistencies undermined the very unity the Crusade sought to establish. The emergence of psychic phenomena during this period further complicated matters. As humanity expanded into the stars, the number of individuals capable of manipulating the warp grew exponentially. While psychers offered unparalleled potential for communication, navigation, and warfare, they also posed immense risks. Without proper training and oversight, many psychers became conduits for warp entities, leading to catastrophic demonic incursions. The Emperor's decision to suppress the truth about the warp and its dangers left many unprepared to handle these phenomena, exacerbating the chaos. The tipping point in the development of the Imperium's endless war was the outbreak of the galaxy-wide civil war that followed the betrayal of key Imperial leaders. This conflict shattered the unity painstakingly built during the Great Crusade, pitting brother against brother and turning the Emperor's dream into a nightmare. The war's scale and ferocity left no faction untouched, devastating entire systems and consuming untold billions of lives. The betrayal was not simply a clash of ideologies, but a consequence of the Emperor's secretive leadership. Those closest to him, feeling marginalized or deceived, turned against the very empire they had helped build. Even after the Civil War's conclusion, the Imperium was forever changed. The Emperor's incapacitation left a power vacuum, and the nascent Imperium adapted into a theocratic regime that enshrined him as a god. This shift marked a significant departure from his original vision of secular governance, introducing rigid dogma and unyielding orthodoxy into the imperial structure. The bureaucracy that emerged, while effective in maintaining control, stifled innovation and adaptability, locking the Imperium into a state of perpetual stagnation. The external threats to the Imperium also grew in the aftermath of the Civil War. Xenos empires that had been weakened or subdued during the Great Crusade began to rise again, emboldened by the Imperium's internal strife. The forces of chaos, invigorated by their earlier success, launched wave after wave of incursions into Imperial space. Each new threat demanded vast resources and constant vigilance, ensuring that the Imperium's war machine would never find rest. The galaxy itself became a stage for endless battles. Planets that had once been thriving hubs of culture and commerce were transformed into battlefields, their populations reduced to fodder for the war effort. Strategic locations such as Forge Worlds, Hive Cities, and Warp Routes became the focal points of unrelenting conflict. Each victory came at a staggering cost, and the Imperium's resources were stretched to their limits as it struggled to defend its vast territories. The most insidious development was the cultural shift within the Imperium. War became not just a necessity, but a defining aspect of its identity. Entire generations knew nothing but conflict, and the Imperium's institutions were structured to perpetuate this reality. From the indoctrination of soldiers to the unyielding demands placed on its citizenry, every aspect of Imperial life was geared toward sustaining the war effort. This normalization of warfare ensured that peace, even if achievable, was never truly sought. The timeline of the Imperium's descent into eternal war is marked by victories that felt hollow, betrayals that cut deep, and an unending cycle of sacrifice. Each stage of its development, from the Great Crusade to the grim reality of the 41st millennium, reinforced the conditions for ceaseless conflict. What began as a mission to unite and protect humanity became an endless struggle for survival, driven by the very secrets and decisions of the Emperor who sought to save it. The critical turning point that solidified the Imperium's fate as one of unending war was the Emperor's decision to pursue secrecy as a cornerstone of his leadership. This choice shaped every major event that followed, acting as both a shield and a weapon, but ultimately, it left the Imperium fractured and vulnerable. The pivotal moment in this dynamic occurred when the Emperor unveiled his ultimate plan, the creation of a device that would fundamentally alter humanity's reliance on the warp and render the galaxy's greatest dangers obsolete. The Emperor's ultimate goal was the construction of the Golden Throne, a massive and complex piece of ancient technology that would serve as the gateway to a human-designed webway. This vast network, originally created by an ancient alien race, was a series of stable pathways through the fabric of reality, free from the dangers of the warp. If successful, the Imperium could bypass the chaotic dimension entirely, ensuring safe travel and communication across the galaxy. This vision was not merely ambitious. It represented the culmination of the Emperor's millennia of planning and his answer to humanity's survival. However, the Emperor chose to keep the nature of this project hidden from nearly everyone, sharing it only with a select few. He directed his energies to this effort in secret, withdrawing from the day-to-day leadership of the Imperium. As he focused on the Golden Throne, he delegated the management of the Great Crusade and the galaxy's burgeoning empire to his commanders and administrators. This decision to step away from visible leadership created a vacuum of authority, sowing confusion and mistrust among his closest allies. Many began to question his priorities, interpreting his withdrawal as a sign of abandonment or arrogance. The construction of the Golden Throne required the Emperor to delve into forbidden knowledge and ancient technologies, some of which carried ties to the warp and its unpredictable energies. His reliance on these tools clashed with his stated goal of a purely secular and rational Imperium. Those who discovered fragments of his plans often misunderstood his intent, assuming betrayal or hubris. These misconceptions, exacerbated by the Emperor's silence, created rifts among the Imperium's leadership and fueled resentment. Compounding this issue was the Emperor's dismissal of external warnings and advice. Trusted advisors and allies, some of whom recognized the growing discontent and the dangers it posed, were ignored or kept at a distance. His confidence in his own judgment and refusal to share critical information left these individuals ill-equipped to address the challenges that arose. When cracks in the foundation of the Imperium began to widen, there was little they could do to hold the empire together. The decision to conceal the full scope of the Golden Throne project also had a catastrophic psychological impact on those tasked with carrying out the Emperor's vision. His closest allies, while loyal, struggled to reconcile their trust in his leadership with the mystery surrounding his actions. The lack of transparency eroded morale, leaving them susceptible to doubt and, in some cases, manipulation by external forces. This growing uncertainty reached a breaking point when elements within the Imperium began to question the Emperor's legitimacy entirely. The Emperor's secrecy also provided fertile ground for his adversaries to exploit. Those opposed to his vision, whether alien, heretic, or demonic, weaponized the mistrust sown by his decisions. They offered alternative narratives, portraying the Emperor as a tyrant who sought to suppress knowledge and enslave humanity under his rule. These narratives found willing audiences among the disillusioned and the desperate, leading to widespread rebellion and treachery. The turning point reached its apex when the Emperor's greatest project was catastrophically disrupted. This failure not only exposed the fragility of his plans, but also unleashed a chain reaction of chaos and devastation. The web of secrecy he had spun unraveled, and the consequences rippled across the galaxy. The Imperium, once held together by his vision and authority, descended into a state of constant crisis. The very tool that was meant to save humanity became the symbol of its unending struggle. The decision to prioritize secrecy over transparency and trust marked a watershed moment in the history of the Imperium. While the Emperor's motives were driven by a desire to protect humanity from truths he deemed too dangerous to share, this choice ultimately doomed his empire to perpetual conflict. The secrecy surrounding the Golden Throne, its construction, and its failure became the fulcrum upon which the galaxy turned, ensuring that the Imperium would forever be defined by war, sacrifice, and the shadows of unanswered questions. The immediate impact of the Emperor's secrets on the universe was both profound and multifaceted, shaping every aspect of life across the Imperium and beyond. The ripples of his decisions extended far beyond the boundaries of human space, altering the trajectory of countless civilizations and embedding conflict into the very fabric of the galaxy. One of the most evident consequences was the Imperium's descent into a state of perpetual warfare. The lack of transparency surrounding critical threats, such as the warp and its demonic entities, left humanity ill-prepared to counter them effectively. By withholding the true nature of these dangers, the Emperor inadvertently ensured that his followers would face them with a mix of fear, ignorance, and superstition. This not only hampered the Imperium's ability to respond strategically, but also created an environment where panic and mistrust could thrive. Entire sectors were devastated by demonic incursions that might have been prevented with proper knowledge and preparation. The suppression of technological innovation and understanding was another major consequence. The Emperor's reliance on the Mechanicum to manage and maintain humanity's technological resources came with significant trade-offs. By keeping the secrets of ancient technologies to himself, he limited humanity's ability to advance and adapt. The Mechanicum, already steeped in ritualistic dogma, adopted a reverence for technology that stifled progress and prioritized preservation over innovation. As a result, the Imperium's technological base became increasingly stagnant, relying on relics of the past that few truly understood. This stagnation left humanity at a disadvantage against more advanced xeno-civilizations, forcing the Imperium to rely on brute force and overwhelming numbers rather than ingenuity. The Emperor's secrecy also shaped the cultural and spiritual landscape of the Imperium. His deliberate efforts to dismantle religious institutions and promote secularism were undermined by his own enigmatic nature. By refusing to openly address the deeper mysteries of his plans or the threats facing humanity, he inadvertently encouraged the rise of myths and legends surrounding his persona. After his incapacitation, this mystique transformed into full-blown deification as the Imperium's leadership established the imperial cult to maintain unity. The resulting theocracy imposed rigid dogma and suppressed dissent, creating a society where questioning authority was equated with heresy. This cultural shift entrenched ignorance and fear, ensuring that the Imperium's populace remained pliable but ill-equipped to confront the realities of the galaxy. The consequences of the Emperor's actions extended beyond humanity to the galaxy's many alien civilizations. The Imperium's aggressive expansionism, fueled by the Emperor's vision of human supremacy, provoked hostility from nearly every non-human species. Whether through direct extermination campaigns or the suppression of alien cultures, the Imperium's policies ensured that it would face constant resistance. Even species that might have coexisted peacefully were forced into conflict, further entrenching the cycle of war. This unyielding hostility alienated potential allies and left humanity isolated in a hostile galaxy. The impact on interstellar governance was equally significant. The Emperor's decision to consolidate power within the Imperium left little room for local autonomy or flexibility. Planetary governors were appointed to enforce imperial rule, but their effectiveness varied widely. While some maintained stability and prosperity, others abused their authority, exploiting their populations for personal gain or failing to prepare adequately for external threats. This inconsistency weakened the Imperium's cohesion, creating pockets of resistance and rebellion that required constant military intervention. The bureaucracy that emerged to manage the Imperium's vast territories became bloated and inefficient, further exacerbating the challenges of governance. The militarization of the Imperium's economy was another direct result of the Emperor's approach. With war becoming the central focus of imperial policy, entire industries were repurposed to support the war effort. Forge worlds churned out weapons and vehicles at the expense of other forms of production, while hive cities became recruitment centers for endless waves of soldiers. This singular focus on warfare strained resources and created a society where survival depended on the ability to fight. Civilian populations were often conscripted or forced into servitude, their lives consumed by the Imperium's insatiable demand for manpower. Perhaps the most far-reaching consequence was the psychological impact on humanity. The Emperor's secrets, combined with the unrelenting state of war, fostered a culture of paranoia and fatalism. The average citizen of the Imperium lives in constant fear, bombarded by propaganda that reinforces the idea that humanity is besieged on all sides. This climate of fear has suppressed creativity, critical thinking, and hope, leaving a populace that is deeply indoctrinated but spiritually hollow. Even those in positions of power are not immune to this effect, as the weight of the Emperor's legacy casts a shadow over their decisions. Beyond humanity, the Emperor's secrets also disrupted the balance of power within the galaxy. The forces of chaos, emboldened by the ignorance and fear they were able to exploit, gained a foothold that has only grown stronger over time. Xenos species, while often adversaries, have also been shaped by their interactions with the Imperium. Some have evolved their strategies specifically to counter humanity's relentless aggression, while others have become consumed by their own cycles of war and vengeance. In some, the immediate impact of the Emperor's secrets has been to create a galaxy defined by conflict, mistrust, and stagnation. The Imperium, though vast and powerful, remains a fragile construct, propped up by relentless sacrifice and dogmatic adherence to an ideal that is rarely understood. The Emperor's decisions, however well-intentioned, have locked humanity into a struggle for survival that shows no signs of ending. This grim legacy ensures that war is not merely a necessity for the Imperium, but an inescapable reality that defines its existence. The unique aspects tied to the Emperor's secrets and their role in dooming the Imperium to perpetual war reveal a complex interplay of extraordinary decisions, hidden knowledge, and the consequences of manipulating forces beyond full understanding. These distinctive elements showcase the vast scope of the Emperor's vision and the inherent contradictions that came with his approach. A central feature of the Emperor's plan was his unparalleled mastery of genetics and biotechnology. Using techniques that even the Mechanicum could not replicate, he engineered humanity's most powerful soldiers and developed technologies to enhance human capability far beyond natural limits. However, the Emperor deliberately withheld the processes and principles behind these advancements. This secrecy ensured that only he could maintain control over the most potent aspects of human development. While this decision temporarily secured his dominance, it also created a dangerous dependency. When his knowledge was lost, it left the Imperium without the means to adapt or recreate many of the tools necessary for its survival. Another unique aspect was the Emperor's direct engagement with the Warp, a realm of psychic energy and chaos. Unlike many within his empire, the Emperor understood the Warp as both a source of power and an existential threat. His attempts to master this volatile dimension were reflected in the construction of the Golden Throne and the creation of powerful psychic wards to shield humanity from its dangers. However, his secrecy about the true nature of the Warp and its inhabitants deprived his followers of the understanding necessary to combat these forces effectively. The Emperor's choice to focus on his own mastery, rather than educating his allies on the dangers of the Warp, left humanity vulnerable to manipulation by entities within it. The Emperor's use of ancient forbidden technologies also set him apart. Drawing on knowledge from the Dark Age of technology and beyond, he incorporated machines and systems into his plans that defied the understanding of even the most advanced minds in the Imperium. Many of these devices, such as the Golden Throne itself, operated on principles that blurred the line between science and metaphysics. The reliance on these arcane systems introduced a layer of fragility to the Imperium. If these systems failed, the Imperium would lack the expertise or resources to repair or replace them, a scenario that became devastatingly real after the Emperor's incapacitation. One of the most striking aspects of the Emperor's strategy was his suppression of religion and spirituality. His vision for humanity was one of rationalism and secular unity, free from the divisive influences of belief systems. Ironically, this suppression became a cornerstone of the Imperium's eventual theocracy. By refusing to acknowledge the psychological and cultural importance of faith for many of his subjects, the Emperor inadvertently left a void that would later be filled by the imperial cult. The transformation of the Emperor himself into a figure of worship was an unintended consequence of his refusal to engage with the spiritual needs of humanity openly. This divergence between his intended vision and the reality of the Imperium's spiritual landscape became a defining feature of its culture. Another element of the Emperor's secrets was the manipulation of time and destiny. Throughout his actions, there are hints that the Emperor had foreseen certain events or possessed knowledge of the galaxy's future. This perception influenced many of his decisions, particularly those involving his most trusted agents. However, his reluctance to share this knowledge created an atmosphere of uncertainty and mistrust. His followers were left to interpret his actions without context, often leading to disastrous misunderstandings. The perception of the Emperor as infallible and omniscient clashed with the reality of his human limitations, further complicating his legacy. The Emperor's deliberate compartmentalization of knowledge within the Imperium also stands out. By design, no single individual or faction had access to the entirety of his plans. This method ensured that betrayal or failure in one area would not jeopardize the whole. However, it also fostered an environment of suspicion and rivalry. Different factions within the Imperium, from the military to the Mechanicum, operated with incomplete information, often pursuing conflicting objectives. This fragmentation weakened the Imperium's unity and made coordinated action more difficult, particularly during crises. A final unique aspect was the Emperor's approach to governance and control. His use of symbols, rituals, and propaganda to inspire loyalty and fear was unparalleled in its effectiveness. While he eschewed the idea of being a god, He constructed an image of himself as humanity's ultimate protector and savior. This duality, rejecting godhood while cultivating godlike authority, created a paradox that the Imperium has struggled to reconcile ever since. The result was a system that demanded absolute obedience but offered little transparency or accountability. These unique aspects of the Emperor's secrets reveal a leader who wielded extraordinary power but made choices that introduced profound vulnerabilities. The interplay of advanced technology, psychic mastery, and hidden knowledge set the Imperium on a trajectory defined by conflict and sacrifice. These elements, while awe-inspiring in their ambition, contributed to the systemic fragility and unending warfare that have come to define the Imperium. They serve as a reminder that even the greatest visionaries must contend with the unintended consequences of their actions. The figures most closely tied to the consequences of the Emperor's secrets represent a wide spectrum of personalities, motivations, and roles within the vast tapestry of the Imperium and its history. Each played a critical part in the unfolding narrative, their actions and decisions shaped by the layers of mystery and deception that defined the Emperor's leadership. These individuals embody the complexities of loyalty, ambition, and the struggle to comprehend the unknowable. The Emperor himself, of course, remains the central figure, but his legacy is defined as much by those who served him as by his own actions. Malcador the Sigillite, the Emperor's most trusted confidant and regent, played an indispensable role in managing the Imperium during its formative years. A master of political maneuvering and an unrivaled scholar of the warp, Malcador understood more of the Emperor's plans than most. Yet even he was often left in the dark, forced to act on incomplete information. His efforts to stabilize the Imperium and ensure its continuity during the Emperor's withdrawal into the Golden Throne project were vital, but his inability to fully explain the Emperor's motives to others created fractures within the leadership. Malcador's tireless work to preserve the Imperium, often at great personal cost, illustrates the burden of serving a master who withheld so much. Within the ranks of the Emperor's closest allies were also figures like Constantine Valdor, the leader of the Adeptus Custodes. Valdor was charged not only with protecting the Emperor, but also with enforcing his will across the Imperium. His unwavering loyalty and dedication made him an exemplary servant, but this same loyalty often isolated him from others. Valdor's unique position meant he witnessed both the Emperor's brilliance and his flaws. Despite this, he rarely questioned his role, embodying the unwavering belief that the Emperor's secrecy was necessary for the greater good. Valdor's steadfastness ensured the security of the Emperor, but also contributed to the divide between the ruler and his subjects. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Horus Lupercal, once the Emperor's favored general, became a tragic symbol of the dangers inherent in the Emperor's secretive leadership. Horus's fall into rebellion was not merely the result of ambition or corruption, but also a product of the Emperor's failure to communicate his plans and the true nature of the galaxy's threats. The lack of trust and understanding between Horus and the Emperor created a vulnerability that chaos exploited, turning the Imperium's greatest champion into its most devastating enemy. Horus's betrayal and the civil war that followed marked the moment when the consequences of the Emperor's secrets became undeniable. Other key figures include Magnus the Red, whose unique psychic abilities brought him into close alignment with the Emperor's understanding of the warp. Magnus's desire to serve and protect humanity was sincere, but his lack of full knowledge about the Emperor's plans led him to make catastrophic mistakes. His attempts to warn the Emperor of treachery backfired, resulting in the destruction of his home world and his eventual alignment with chaos. Magnus's story exemplifies how the Emperor's withholding of critical information created not only resentment, but also confusion that drove even the most loyal followers to despair. Lorgar Aurelian represents another significant personality deeply affected by the Emperor's leadership style. A deeply spiritual individual, Lorgar's devotion to the Emperor as a divine figure clashed with the secular vision imposed by his creator. When the Emperor publicly condemned Lorgar's religious practices, it shattered the bond between them and set Lorgar on a path toward rebellion. Lorgar's embrace of chaos was not merely an act of defiance, but a reaction to the Emperor's refusal to acknowledge the spiritual needs of his subjects. His transformation into a champion of chaos marked a turning point in the Imperium's struggle against internal and external threats. Beyond these high-profile figures, there are those like Garvia Loken, an officer whose perspective offers insight into the human cost of the Emperor's secrecy. Loken's unwavering dedication to the ideals of justice and honor placed him at odds with the shifting allegiances and betrayals that defined the Civil War. As he struggled to navigate the chaos unleashed by Horus's rebellion, Loken came to understand the devastating impact of the Emperor's silence on those who fought and died for his vision. Loken's journey reflects the broader disillusionment felt by many within the Imperium, as the ideals they believed in were eroded by the realities of war. Among the enemies of the Imperium, figures like Abaddon the Despoiler emerge as key players who exploited the fallout of the Emperor's secrecy. As Horus's second-in-command, Abaddon witnessed firsthand the consequences of the Emperor's decisions and used that knowledge to fuel his campaigns against the Imperium. His understanding of the Imperium's vulnerabilities, combined with his ability to manipulate its fractured leadership, made him one of its most enduring threats. Finally, the Silent King of the Necron dynasty offers an external perspective on the ramifications of the Emperor's choices. Though not directly tied to the Imperium's internal struggles, the Silent King's awareness of the warp's dangers mirrors the Emperor's concerns. However, unlike the Emperor, the Silent King sought alliances and collective solutions rather than secrecy. His contrasting approach highlights the unique path the Emperor chose and the consequences of that choice. These individuals, each shaped in some way by the Emperor's decisions, illustrate the far-reaching effects of his leadership. Their stories are as much about their own actions as they are about their responses to the mysteries and challenges imposed by the Emperor's secrecy. Together, they form a tapestry of loyalty, betrayal, and resilience that defines the grim reality of the Imperium's endless war. The question of whether the Emperor's secrets doomed the Imperium to eternal war is deeply entwined with unresolved mysteries and theories that continue to haunt the galaxy. These unanswered questions fuel debates among historians, scholars, and those who seek to understand the motives and consequences of the Emperor's decisions. Each mystery adds a layer of complexity to the narrative, suggesting that the true story may be far more intricate than what is known. One of the most persistent questions is the extent of the Emperor's foresight. While it is evident that he possessed extraordinary precognitive abilities, the limits of this power remain unclear. Did the Emperor foresee the Horus heresy and the collapse of his plans? And if so, why did he proceed with a course of action that seemed destined to fail? Some argue that the Emperor's secrecy was a deliberate strategy to allow humanity to evolve through struggle, while others suggest he underestimated the scale of resistance and betrayal his choices would provoke. The notion that the Emperor might have anticipated his own incapacitation, but chose to act regardless, leaves scholars questioning whether his vision was a form of grim necessity or hubris. Another unresolved issue centers around the true nature of the Golden Throne. While it is commonly understood as a life support device and a gateway to the human-designed webway, its full capabilities and origins remain shrouded in mystery. Some theorists posit that the throne may have been more than a tool for sustaining the Emperor's psychic presence. Was it part of a larger, uncompleted project to reshape the galaxy, or an ancient relic repurposed for the Emperor's goals? The question of whether the throne could ever be repaired or its original function restored looms large, as its failure would spell catastrophe for the Imperium. The Emperor's knowledge of the warp and its entities raises additional questions. His deep understanding of chaos suggests that he was aware of the full extent of its threat long before humanity's widespread encounters with it. However, his decision to suppress this knowledge has led many to speculate whether he believed humanity was incapable of confronting the truth. Did the Emperor consider the psychological impact of revealing chaos too great, or did he fear that open acknowledgement would empower the warp's entities further? This secrecy has led to theories that the Emperor was engaged in a deeper conflict within the warp itself, fighting battles unseen by mortal eyes. A particularly enigmatic aspect of the Emperor's secrets lies in the creation of certain technologies and entities. Many of the Imperium's most powerful tools, such as the Astronomicon and the Emperor's psychic wards, operate on principles that defy modern understanding. Where did this knowledge originate, and how much of it was the Emperor's own invention versus rediscovered relics of an earlier age? Some theorists suggest that the Emperor drew upon forbidden sources, possibly even non-human, to achieve his goals. If true, this raises uncomfortable questions about the purity of his vision for humanity and whether his reliance on these tools contributed to the challenges faced by the Imperium. Another unresolved mystery concerns the Emperor's ultimate goal for humanity. While he spoke of uniting mankind and safeguarding its future, his long-term intentions remain obscured. Did he envision humanity as a purely secular empire, free from superstition and bound by rationality, or did he have a deeper purpose tied to the evolution of psychic potential? Some argue that the Emperor sought to elevate humanity to a state where it could rival or even surpass the ancient races that once dominated the galaxy. If this was his aim, it remains unclear why he chose to withhold the steps necessary to achieve it, leaving humanity stranded in a state of stagnation and conflict. The role of individuals closest to the Emperor also invites speculation. Figures like Malcador the Sigillite and Constantin Valdor were privy to aspects of the Emperor's plans that remain unknown to the wider Imperium. What secrets did they take to their graves, and how might their full understanding have changed the course of history? Some believe that these trusted agents may have acted independently to preserve certain aspects of the Emperor's vision, creating hidden contingencies that could one day be revealed. Others theorize that their silence was enforced to prevent the spread of knowledge deemed too dangerous. The nature of the Emperor's incapacitation itself is another source of debate. While his physical form remains entombed on the Golden Throne, his psychic presence continues to guide the Imperium in subtle ways. Some question whether the Emperor's consciousness is fully intact or if only fragments of his mind persist. This uncertainty has given rise to theories that the Emperor might one day awaken, or that his psychic essence could be transferred to a new host. If such a possibility exists, it could drastically alter the course of the Imperium and reignite long-dormant conflicts. Finally, the enduring mystery of Chaos's ultimate victory remains a topic of fear and speculation. The Emperor's secrecy regarding the nature of chaos and his inability to eradicate its influence entirely suggest that he may have recognized it as an eternal force. Did he believe humanity could eventually overcome chaos, or was his entire strategy built around containment and survival? Some theorists propose that the Emperor's silence on this issue was a tacit admission that true victory was impossible, leaving the Imperium to fight a war it could never truly win. These unanswered questions and theories underscore the intricate and unresolved legacy of the Emperor's decisions. They leave the Imperium in a state of uncertainty, grappling with the consequences of actions taken millennia ago. Each mystery points to a larger truth about the Imperium's eternal war, that it is not merely the result of external threats or internal betrayal, but a reflection of the enigmatic and often contradictory nature of the Emperor himself. The long-term consequences of the Emperor's secrecy have fundamentally shaped the galaxy, ensuring that war, stagnation, and despair are inescapable elements of existence within the Imperium. These effects ripple outward, influencing every aspect of human society, the balance of power among galactic civilizations, and the very fabric of reality itself. One of the most enduring consequences is the unrelenting militarization of human culture. Over 10,000 years, the Imperium has been locked in a perpetual state of war, where every resource, institution, and individual is ultimately directed towards survival. Entire generations are born into a galaxy where conflict is not only expected, but normalized, with the glorification of warfare ingrained into imperial doctrine. This militaristic focus has drained humanity's creative and intellectual potential, reducing technological progress and cultural development to shadows of their former heights. The knowledge and artistry that defined humanity's golden age have been replaced by a grim adherence to dogma, where survival is prized above all else. The political structure of the Imperium reflects another key long-term effect of the Emperor's secrecy. The immense bureaucracy that governs the galaxy has become a labyrinthine, self-perpetuating entity where inefficiency and corruption are commonplace. Planetary governors, military leaders, and religious authorities wield vast power, but their decisions are often constrained by fear, ignorance, and competing interests. This decentralized and fractured governance ensures that the Imperium remains reactionary, unable to adapt to changing circumstances or learn from its past mistakes. The stagnation of this system prevents meaningful reforms, trapping humanity in an unending cycle of repetition and regression. On a larger scale, the Emperor's secrecy has had a profound impact on the balance of power in the galaxy. The Imperium's policy of exterminating most alien species, coupled with its inability to form lasting alliances, has left it surrounded by enemies. This isolation, while initially intended to secure humanity's dominance, has instead created a galaxy where nearly every xeno-civilization views the Imperium with hostility. The constant pressure from external threats prevents the Imperium from ever achieving true stability, ensuring that it remains locked in perpetual defense against forces it cannot fully overcome. The religious transformation of the Imperium is another far-reaching consequence. After the Emperor's incapacitation, his deification became the foundation of the state religion, the imperial cult. This shift created a theocratic regime that enforces absolute loyalty to the Emperor's image, while suppressing dissent and alternative ideas. The imperial cult's rigid dogma has become both a unifying force and a source of oppression, reinforcing the stagnation and fear that permeate the Imperium. By elevating the Emperor to godhood, the Imperium has created an ideal it cannot possibly fulfill, leading to disillusionment and rebellion among those who see through its contradictions. The Emperor's reliance on secrecy has also had a significant effect on humanity's relationship with the warp. By withholding critical knowledge about this chaotic realm, he left humanity vulnerable to its influence. The Imperium's continued use of the warp for travel and communication, despite its dangers, has ensured that it remains a constant source of corruption and destruction. The psychic awakening of humanity, once seen as a potential avenue for evolution, has become a curse, as untrained psychers inadvertently open gateways to the warp, allowing demonic incursions to devastate entire worlds. The Emperor's failure to create a sustainable system for managing psychic potential has left the Imperium in a precarious position, constantly battling the very forces it relies upon. Perhaps the most profound long-term consequence is the loss of unity and trust within the Imperium. The Emperor's decision to withhold so much from his closest allies created divisions that persist to this day. Factions within the Imperium often work at cross purposes, driven by incomplete knowledge and conflicting interpretations of the Emperor's will. This lack of cohesion undermines humanity's ability to act as a unified force, weakening its position in the galaxy and leaving it vulnerable to exploitation by its enemies. The enduring significance of the Emperor's secrecy is its role in shaping the mindset of the Imperium's population. The average citizen lives in a state of fear and ignorance, indoctrinated to believe that the Emperor's divine plan requires their unquestioning obedience and sacrifice. This pervasive atmosphere stifles innovation and dissent, ensuring that the Imperium remains trapped in its current state. Even those in positions of power are limited by the same constraints, unable to think beyond the narrow confines of tradition and dogma. The wider galactic consequences of the Emperor's decisions extend beyond humanity. The forces of chaos, emboldened by the ignorance and fear that permeate the Imperium, have grown stronger over millennia. Their influence has spread like a cancer, corrupting not only humans but also alien civilizations. The Emperor's failure to provide a definitive solution to the threat of chaos has allowed it to remain an ever-present danger, ensuring that no corner of the galaxy is safe from its reach. The final and perhaps most devastating consequence is the entrenchment of a grim fatalism across the galaxy. The Emperor's secrecy, combined with the unending cycle of war, has fostered a belief that the galaxy's current state is immutable. The idea of a brighter future or a different way forward has been all but extinguished, replaced by the resignation that the struggle for survival is eternal. This pervasive despair is as much a weapon of humanity's enemies as it is a byproduct of the Emperor's choices, leaving the Imperium locked in a fight it can neither escape nor win. In sum, the long-term consequences of the Emperor's secrets are as vast and far-reaching as the galaxy itself. They have defined the Imperium as an empire of stagnation and war, where every victory is fleeting and every defeat compounds its burdens. These effects underscore the complex and often contradictory nature of the Emperor's legacy, ensuring that his decisions continue to shape the galaxy's destiny in profound and unrelenting ways.